So this video is just a little documentary I'm putting together about a fun kit that I bought called the AVR Oscilloscope Clock, put out by Dutchtronix. It's www.dutchtronix.com. It seems like a lot of it has to do with Tektronix instruments, but they do have this one product, as well as Tektronix items. Right now it's showing a Tektronix 486 for sale, or I'm sorry, a 468. Anyway, I'm here at the website to download the instructions. I've already received the kit. Here's the basic set of features. It connects to an analog scope in XY mode using BNC cables or probes, either 1X or 10X. It uses the Atmel AVR AT-Mega 328P microcontroller with 32 kilobytes of flash memory. It has an onboard 5-volt power regulator, so a wall adapter, which is provided by the user, doesn't come with the kit, anywhere from 8 to 15 volts DC center positive. It has a standard 5.5 millimeter power socket. It includes a onboard real-time clock with a crystal and battery backup, a digital to analog converter with a built-in op-amp, onboard true RS-232 level converter for the serial port that's on there, professionally made 3" by 3" printed circuit board with solder masks and silk screen, BNC connectors, a DB9 connector for the RS-232, an on-off switch, 2 tactile switches to set it up, an intensity control output, a footprint on the PCB for an optional USB interface, a header to select power from USB interface, a header for an external clock signal, for example from a GPS module, such as the rubidium oscillator or the GPS 1 pulse per second devices that are out there. Headers provide easy access to the TTL level serial port and all the FAQs and stuff that are on the website. So this same product, or something very similar to it, was produced by SparkFun, I believe, as a kit. It looked like they took the same basic design, they implemented it with surface mount parts, whereas this kit uses normal through hole and dip type packages. I presume this is the older version, but the SparkFun one is not available anymore. This Dutchtronix one is. It'll do a normal conventional clock with the hands, or it'll do a digital clock and display it all on the scope. So there's various firmware upgrades. Apparently it's up to version 4.2 at this time. And all I'm trying to do is find where the... oh, it'll also display as a binary clock. How about that? That should be interesting. There's what the board will look like. There's a video demo of it available. There are all the parts. Let's see. All I'm trying to do is get the manual. So I've printed out the 5-page assembly manual, and here's the kit as it comes. Some of the capacitors are very small and not clearly marked, and you can figure them out, and there are some clues given in the manual, but for these things I always like to verify it, and since I've got a digital LC bridge, I'm going to plug the caps in and see that this is a 22.6 puff cap, and it's supposed to be a 22, so that's pretty close. And here's the other one, I think is a 22, and it also is. And there are also supposed to be 9 capacitors of a 100 nanofarad value. And here's checking the last of the 9, and they're all within reason. So I'm getting ready for the assembly here. The One thing I didn't care about the manual too much, or the assembly manual, is that it's only on a website. It's an HTML file, and it does not lend itself to printing out. The edges of the screen and the text and characters are right next to each other, so if you print it out directly from a website, you're liable to get some cropping because it tries to print all the way to the edge of the paper. It doesn't have any intelligence about where to make page breaks or deal with margins. So what I actually did to get a printable manual, I always like printable manuals, is I used a screen capture program to save each chunk of it and then put it into a page layout program and reformat it that way and print it out. So I got an 8-page manual that I printed out in that fashion. So you get a list of all the parts. There's a double-sided circuit board about 3 inches by 3 inches. Solder mask and silk screened on the front side. The DB9 connector for the RS-232. 2 BNC connectors. A button battery. Trim pot, voltage regulator, couple crystals. 2 push buttons and a small slide switch. Couple of binding posts. Barrel type power connector. Couple of pin headers. IC sockets. Single inline header bars and shunts, which you have to cut apart the header bar to make the requisite smaller ones. Some electrolytic capacitors, a couple of small caps, which are no doubt for at least one of the crystals, a bunch of small decoupling capacitors, some diodes, transistors, resistors, LEDs, and everything is here. Okay, I've got a 12-volt DC wall wart plugged in, and I've got both scope probes connected. I'm not using the BNC connectors, I'm just using the terminal posts that are provided in case you're hooking up with probes as I am. For a more permanent installation, you'd use BNC cables. I've got my scope set to XY mode, and I turn the device on, and voila! I've got a clock on the screen. That's pretty cool. I'm not sure what the LEDs mean yet. Obviously the red one's a power on. The green one may have something to do with the battery. It did say that it's common for it to power up with a low battery indication that'll go away after a little while, so maybe that's what's going on there. There is this trim pot, and that's a size control. So if I adjust that, it's changing both the X and the Y. So the clock is programmed using switch S1 and switch S2. So this a S1 short push enters the menu mode. And yes, it is. And S1 long push enters the time set mode. S2 short push displays the help screen. S2 long push reboots the AVR clock. So to set the time, okay, so S1 will increment the current value, keep pushing. Alright, let's see how that works here. So it's currently 3:32, about 3:33. Three 21. So I'm off by a minute, it's 33. I've got 24. So I have to do that again. Should be 33. Okay, the time is set correctly, and the hands are displaying the correct values. So a short push on S1 will put me in the menu mode, and S1 changes the value and S2 moves to the next option. So I'm in 12-hour mode, that's good. The dial's a 12-hour dial, GPS is off, daylight savings time is USA. Yeah, I'm not going to do anything with that. Okay. So it's pretty much set up unless I add the GPS or something to it. That works really well. That's a good kit. Oh, I didn't go into all the modes yet. So if I want to get into the menu mode, I have to hit S1 short. And what if I change that from 12-hour to something else? 24-hour ROM digital. Ah, there we go. Yeah, so now it reads it that way. And there's the date, and to set the date I have to be in the numeric display, shows the current date. If not, change it to the date display using the menu. It's confusing. Alright, so now I'm in the date setting mode to get to 2018. And it's April. And what is it? It's the 14th. Okay, so the date has been set. Let's see what happens when I get into the menu and I change it. You can also do an alarm clock with this. I want the numeric off, but I could change it to a 12-hour numeric, 24-hour numeric, hex. I don't know what that means. Yeah, and there's the binary version of it. Showing the time. It's 3:41. I'm not sure how to read that actually. Anyway, could play with this a bit more. I managed to mess up the time settings screwing around, so I have to so we're back to the right time now. And just for yucks, here's the oscilloscope clock working on my Dutchtronix 212 with its tiny little screen. Even though the beam is relatively fat by comparison to the regular scope, it still makes a intelligible display. You can read the numbers and so on. And just for further yucks, I decided to try my digital oscilloscope with the scope clock, and it's not working all that great. I've never used the XY mode on here before, and the manual's not very helpful. It did tell me how to get into the XY mode, but beyond that it doesn't really describe that much how to use it. It's obviously sort of doing it, but there seems to be some sampling issues where it's not able to really display the whole thing all at once. I'm not really sure why that is, but apparently it's sampling all the data at a rate which is not conducive to a stable display here. Oop, there we go. I've changed the horizontal setting. Oh. Yeah, it gets progressively worse that way. Turning it further does not help. It just makes it blurrier. So this seems to be about the best right here. You can kind of see the numbers, you can kind of make out the time, but not the digits very clearly. This is illegible there, really. But I can see the, you know, the clock thinks it's 8:54, so the little hand is here almost at 9 o'clock, and the big hand is up at 54, and you can see the sweep second hand. So it's basically doing it, but it's not optimal. This product is really designed for a normal CRT oscilloscope, and the results that you get with a digital scope will probably always be less than what you'd get with an analog CRT scope. But some may do it better than this. This is a fairly high-end prosumer scope, the SDS 1204XE from Siglent. But unless there's something I'm missing about how to set this up, I don't know that I'm going to get it any better than this. I've tried all the settings that are on here, and I don't see anything that would make it any better. Anyway, so that's the results I'm getting with it. Sort of works, but if you're really interested in this product, I'd recommend you use it with a analog CRT scope. And this is more interesting, though. This shows what the actual waveform is on the two channels and the hijinks that are going on with those signals to get it to display all the stuff. It's obviously a very dynamic, unstable signal, but they're going through all sorts of stuff there to get it to display the proper characters. Pretty interesting. I forgot to show the demo mode of this scope. So let's see, go through here, and its app is the clock, and I can change that. You can go into terminal mode, signal generator mode, or demo. So now it should be in demo mode. Let's see. Yeah, so now it's going into hexadecimal for the time. You can put your name on it. "24-hour mode, Roman numeral mode, digital clock mode, with the date spelled out different ways, hexadecimal or whatever that is, hexadecimal's there. And there's your binary mode. Vector graphics. help screen. Time's going backwards. Warnings, that's like the low battery warning there. I don't remember what P means or G. Burn-in prevention, where it jags it around a little bit. GPS, daylight savings time, alarm mode. Thank you. Now I think it's back to normal operation at this point. I don't think it's in demo mode anymore. So, just thought I'd tack that on.